You remember the last time you got an email that knocked the wind out of you? I remember that day clearly. A normal morning, coffee still hot on the table. I opened my laptop and in my inbox was a subject line: "We regret to inform you." In a few seconds, it felt like my whole world collapsed. I lost my job, and with it, the one paycheck I relied on to survive. I remember my heart pounding so hard my hands shook. I wasn't thinking about dreams or passions. I was only thinking, how am I going to pay rent this month? The electric bill? The credit cards? If you've ever lived paycheck to paycheck, you know that fear. It's not just losing money. It's losing security, losing control, losing the illusion that you were okay. But then, something strange happened. Instead of just crushing me, that shock opened another door. If I told you, losing my paycheck didn't take away my freedom, but instead gave me back the freedom I had lost long ago, sounds crazy, right? But stay with me for a few minutes, and let me tell you why. Losing my job, the thing I once saw as a disaster, became the most important turning point of my life. In America, there's a phrase many people know by heart: living paycheck to paycheck. It means you work, get paid, pay all the bills, and there's almost nothing left. And then, you wait for the next paycheck just to breathe again. Statistics show that more than 60% of Americans live like that. Maybe you do too. You wake up every morning, jump straight into work email, hit join meeting before you even finish your coffee. You work overtime, check your phone at 1 p.m. just to make sure work is okay. And then, at the end of the month, your balance still doesn't look any better. You feel exhausted. But when someone asks, "Why don't you quit?" you force a smile. "I can't. I need the paycheck." And that's the trap. You don't work to live. You live to maintain the paycheck. I was like that too. I hated the job, but I was afraid to leave it. I convinced myself, just one more year, one more promotion, then it'll get better. But the truth was, I felt more and more empty. No passion, no freedom, only the fear of losing the one source of money. And then that day came. No warning, no preparation, just a short email, and the paycheck was gone. For many people, that's a nightmare. For me, at first it was too. I worried myself sleepless. I blamed myself. I felt like a failure. But you know what's strange? When fear hit rock bottom, I started to realize, maybe losing my job isn't the end. Maybe it's an opportunity I was too afraid to take before. The first morning after I lost my job, I woke up at 6 a.m., out of habit. But instead of opening my laptop to check email, I just sat on the bed, staring at the wall. No more meeting schedules, no more deadlines, no more rapid pings from Slack. Only silence. A silence so heavy I felt like I was invisible. I used to think a paycheck defined my worth. Every 2 weeks, the number in my bank account felt like a reminder. You're useful. You're contributing. And when the paycheck disappeared, I felt like I disappeared with it. In the early days, I cycled between worry and panic. I calculated every expense: rent, health insurance, credit card debt. The numbers weren't small. Then I called a close friend and confessed, I feel like all the oxygen was sucked out of my life. Without a paycheck, there's nothing holding me up anymore. My friend was silent for a moment and said, maybe you're mistaken. The paycheck wasn't holding you up. It was chaining you down. I didn't get it at the time. That sentence just made me more annoyed. Because when you're drowning, how can you think about freedom? You just want to breathe. In the next few weeks, I realized a harsh truth. I had never truly been free. Even with a paycheck, I was always living in fear of losing it. I remembered the 11 p.m. nights, typing on my laptop while my family gathered in the living room. I remembered my heart racing when my boss called unexpectedly, and I had to fake enthusiasm even though I was drained. I remembered all the times I said yes to every request, just because I needed the paycheck. Losing my job didn't create the fear. It just stripped away the cover from the fear I'd carried all along. One evening, I sat down with a small notebook I used to only write to-do lists in. I wrote this question: what scares me most about losing my paycheck? And I started to answer. I'm afraid I won't have enough to pay the bills. I'm afraid of being judged. I'm afraid I'll become a failure. I'm afraid I'll never find another job. But after writing it all out, I noticed something. My biggest fear wasn't money. It was losing what I once believed was my self-worth. And here's the first lesson I took away. If you let a paycheck define your worth, then even when you have it, you've never truly been free. I want to share a small exercise with you, just like I did that day. Take a sheet of paper and write this question at the top. What scares me most if my paycheck disappears tomorrow? Answer honestly. No hiding, no editing. Write it all out. Fears about money, the shame, the feeling of failure, everything. Then read it again. You'll see many fears are just assumptions, not truths. And sometimes, just looking your fear in the eye takes away some of its power. Those first pages changed me. They didn't make my worries vanish overnight. I still had to face the bills, still had to find a way to survive. But at least, I realized, the biggest fear wasn't losing money. It was that I had let the paycheck control my whole soul. And that was when the first door cracked open, leading me to the turning point. There's a morning I'll never forget. It was raining. I was sitting in a small coffee shop near my house, holding a job application I'd sent out dozens of times in the past 2 weeks. But instead of focusing on tweaking my resume, I just watched people passing by the window. Everyone was rushing, raincoats whipping, coffee cups in hand to make it to the office on time. And suddenly, a thought flashed. Do I really want to go back to that loop? I had spent years in the hustle, burned out, waiting for the paycheck like oxygen. But in exchange, I lost my youth, my health, and the peace in my mind. In that moment, I realized, a paycheck isn't safety. It's just a golden chain. Beautiful, shiny, but still a chain. When I no longer had a job, I had more time. And in that quiet, I began to ask myself, did I actually like my old job? Did I ever do it for passion, or just out of fear of losing money? If money weren't an issue, what would I want to do every day? The answer shocked me. I had never loved that job. I only loved the paycheck it brought. Honestly, realizing this was both painful and freeing. Painful, because I knew I'd lived like a machine for years, selling time for temporary safety. But freeing, because for the first time I dared to think, maybe I deserve something different. I remember reading about J.K. Rowling. She was unemployed, a single mom, living on welfare before writing Harry Potter. Or Steve Jobs fired from the very company he founded, only to return later with a bigger vision than ever. Those stories showed me, losing a job isn't a period. It can be a comma, a bend in the road, a new beginning. I realized a paradox. When I still had a paycheck, I was afraid of everything. I was afraid my boss wouldn't be pleased. I was afraid coworkers would surpass me. I was afraid I wouldn't climb fast enough. But when I lost everything, I had nothing left to fear. And in that exact moment, I saw something I hadn't had for years. Freedom. Not financial freedom, but freedom of the spirit. I was allowed to ask again, what do I really want? I wrote in my notebook, a paycheck doesn't measure a person's worth. It only measures the hours you sell. My real value lies in creativity, the love I have for the people I care about, and my ability to get back up after falling. No paycheck can measure those things. That day, I started a small habit that I still keep: gratitude journaling. Every morning, before opening my laptop, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. On the first day, my list was short. I still have my health. I have a friend who always listens. I have time to think about my life. That's it. But strangely, as I wrote them down, I felt lighter. Gradually, the list got longer. A beautiful sunset, a good book, a simple meal with family. This exercise taught me, life holds more value than the numbers in your bank account. The shift started small. Instead of calling myself unemployed, I started thinking, I'm someone redefining my life. Instead of panicking about the future, I saw it as a blank page. Once, I wrote in my journal, maybe this isn't the end. Maybe this is an invitation to rewrite my own story. And from that moment, fear slowly gave way to a new spark. Hope. When you hit bottom, you have two choices. Either sit still and let fear swallow you, or use that bottom as a springboard to push off. I chose the second, not because I'm braver than anyone else, but simply because I had nothing left to lose. At first, I wasn't thinking about getting rich or building a great startup. I just wanted to stand up, step by step. I started by taking a few small freelance gigs writing content, simple design for friends. The income wasn't much, just enough to cover a few bills. But it gave me something I'd forgotten for years. I was in charge of my own time. Instead of sitting 8 hours in a cramped office, I could work from a coffee shop, or even from a park. I could choose clients, say no to projects that drained me. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Of course, not everything went smoothly. I tried opening a small online shop. It failed after 3 months. I signed up for a marketing course. Overwhelming at first, but then I realized I actually liked it. Every time I stumbled, I reminded myself I wasn't chained to a safe paycheck anymore. I had the right to fail, the right to try again. One afternoon, I sat with my dad on the porch. He asked, "Do you remember how excited you were about your first job?" I nodded. Then we both laughed, because we knew that excitement had died long ago, replaced by stress and fear. And I realized, freedom doesn't come from having more money, but from living in alignment with your values. When I write, when I help small clients find a voice for their brand, I feel joy. It's small, but it's real. And it's nothing like the emptiness I felt when I got a big paycheck from my old job. I think of myself as a bird. Before, I was locked in a golden cage. There was seed, the paycheck. There was a roof, safety, but I never got to fly. Losing my job was like the cage door suddenly opening. At first, I panicked. The open air outside was vast and scary. But then, when I dared to spread my wings, I discovered the sky was 1,000 times wider than that cramped little cage. I wrote in my journal, losing the paycheck took away the fake safety, but gave me the chance to build real freedom. It's not an easy path. Sometimes I earn less, live simpler, but I no longer feel shackled. I no longer lose myself in exchange for a number in an account. On this journey, there's a small habit that's helped me stay calm. The 4-7-8 breathing exercise. Sit still, close your eyes. Inhale through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold your breath for 7 seconds. Exhale slowly through your mouth for 8 seconds. Repeat 4 times. Whenever I worry about money or the future, I do this exercise. And strangely, in just a few minutes, my mind feels less chaotic. Sometimes, freedom begins as simply as a conscious breath. As time went by, I didn't just survive the shock of losing my job. I grew up. I learned to manage money smarter, not relying entirely on a single source of income. I learned to value mental health, to spend time with family and the things I love. I learned to dare to dream again, even if those dreams were still fragile. Most importantly, I no longer let a paycheck define who I am. I'm the one writing my own story, day by day, choice by choice. And that's exactly what I never thought I'd find in loss. Meaning. Looking back, I see the irony. The thing I feared most, losing my paycheck, became the greatest gift of my life. A paycheck gave me a fake sense of safety, but it also took away freedom. Losing it forced me to face my fear, to rebuild from scratch. And that process gave me something no salary could ever buy: a meaningful life. I no longer work just to get through the day. I work because I choose to, because it reflects my values and my joy. I no longer trade my health to keep a chair in an office. I spend time with my family and with myself. And most importantly, I'm no longer defined by a number in an account. I am me whole, even without a paycheck. Someone once said, "The night is only scary when you forget that dawn is certain." For me, losing the paycheck was the night, but it led me to a dawn where the light of freedom and meaning washed away the darkness of fear. Imagine this. You're standing in front of a door that just closed. You can stand there and cry, or you can turn around and realize right next to it, another door is opening. A door to a new journey, where you don't live just to collect a paycheck, but live to truly live. If you're in a moment of loss, losing a job, losing income, or losing your sense of safety, remember, it's not a period. It might just be a beginning. The beginning of a new chapter where you find freedom, peace, and a new definition of happiness. And now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever lost the thing you feared most, only to receive a gift you never expected? Share your story in the comments. Who knows, maybe your story will be the inspiration someone out there needs when they're feeling lost.